Welcome back to the Kudlow Report. So, question, will Paul Ryan's budget deal save the GOP from itself? That's the title of a column I just wrote. My answer is yes. Not everyone in the world agrees. Here now is former Democratic Congressional Budget Aide Stan Holler. And we also welcome back Dan Holler with the Heritage Action for America. Senator Ron Johnson, being very kind and gracious with his time, is back with us. Dan, let me go to you. I know you're not a happy camper. I myself, I just want to say this is like true confession. If the votes were there, I would be in your camp, okay? I want 100% sequester. I want 110% sequester. But I spoke to Paul Ryan over a week ago. He said the votes were never there, so we got 70% sequester. Is 70% of the loaf good enough for you?
No, I don't accept the premise that there are not the Republican votes in the House to maintain current spending levels. I think that if we, I include you in this, Larry, came out and along with Senator Johnson said our goal is to protect the sequester, that's exactly what we're going to do. We are not going to give in to the Democrats' threats to shut down the government by increasing spending. We're not going to do it. I am pretty sure we could have avoided this spending increase and maintained the leverage of the sequester that may very well get us those real entitlement reforms down the line.
Well, okay, look, I agree with every one of those policy objectives. Let me just add one thing before I get to Stan Holler. The issue here, okay, I may be wrong, but the votes weren't there to get a clean bill that would have kept the sequester 100% in place. Having said that, Dan, having said that, I'm arguing, and it's a political argument, I acknowledge this, that Ryan's deal will avoid a shutdown. And that means the Republicans will not distract themselves or the country over a shutdown and will stay focused on Obamacare, which is the real ticket to regaining the Senate come November. Your thought on that scenario?
Well, look, Larry, I do not think that the government would have shut down had the Republican Party insisted on the current spending levels that Republicans and Democrats alike voted for back in 2011. I think this is a fight we could have won. No Democrat, President Obama, Harry Reid, Nancy Pelosi, none of them are going to go to the American people and say, those darn Republicans don't want to increase federal spending, and that's why we have a government shutdown. That won't fly. We didn't have to cave on this, but we did.
Stan Holler, let me bring you in. And there's a political dimension to this, and there's a fiscal dimension to this. My hunch is you're not too much in agreement with either, but please tell us your view.
Well, look, first of all, you're absolutely right. This was a political deal. This was more important to Congress than it was to the country as a whole because, as you suggested, it makes the possibility or the likelihood of a shutdown in January less likely. But, Larry, it doesn't eliminate it completely. Don't forget, they still have to pass individual appropriations bills to prevent the shutdown or an omnibus bill. And it's not clear that's going to be as easy as we think it's going to be in either house, especially as you get into an election year. That's number one. Number two, from a fiscal policy point of view, this does nothing. $23 billion in net deficit reductions over 10 years when the country is going to spend somewhere between $40 and $50 trillion on its budget, on the combined budgets over that period of time. I mean, there's nothing about reducing the deficit that's significant here in the slightest. It's barely a rounding error. And every time I hear John Boehner say this is a deficit reduction deal and that's why you should vote for it, you realize how much he's stretching to make people, think positively about it.
Well, you are. You make a lot of good points there. I'm not sure Paul Ryan would even disagree with your points on the fiscal side. But, Senator Johnson, look, let me come back to you on this. Like Stan Holler, I want to see entitlement reform. My guess is you want to see entitlement reform.
Absolutely.
And that's what you're talking about with the whole health care bill. But, Senator, don't you need at this point a Republican Senate and a Republican House to get that kind of entitlement reform? And maybe you really can't even do that unless you have all three houses, the presidency and the Senate and the House of Representatives?
Yeah, Larry, the reality situation is President Obama is in the White House. Harry Reid is in firm control of the Senate. I was working at the White House trying to find agreement, looking at a large deal that actually starts solving these long-term problems. They just simply aren't willing to agree to it. But here's an indication how far the sides are apart. The House budget, as passed over 10 years, would actually reduce spending by about $4 trillion. Patty Murray's Senate budget increases spending by $1 trillion, increases taxes by $1 trillion. We're $5 trillion apart. So I mean, in the end, you go, we can't force that immovable object, which is the Democrat Party, that refuses to acknowledge the problem, much less work with us really in good faith to start solving the long-term drives of the debt and deficit. So in the end, from my standpoint, the fact that we're not going to shut down our government, I think that provides some certainty economically, and that's really what this is about. The number one component of a solution, truthfully, is economic growth. Let's not harm economic growth by having these shutdown fights, which I just disagree with Dan. We did not have the votes in the House. I talked to the appropriators, I talked to people in the armed services. We didn't have the votes, and we would not win a shutdown fight. Obviously, we didn't win it last time. We're not going to win one in January either.
Dan, I want you to react to that, and also something Paul Ryan said yesterday, that we Republicans have to have a big family. Victories cannot be done without the Tea Party group or groups like yours. I fully agree with that. I'm not attacking you, buddy. We're having a political disagreement. I'm not attacking you. I don't know. John Boehner got his Irish up. I'm not sure what that was about. Ryan didn't attack you either. How do you feel now on a Monday, having gone through this process in the last 3 or 4 days? Do you feel like you got your political fisticuffs ready to go, or is there some meeting of the minds that can create a merger here?
Well, look, I mean, I don't really care about the Speaker's attacks last week. We're concerned about the policy, and the policy on this is clear. It's $63 billion in spending increases. It's new deficit spending throughout the remainder of President Obama's term. That's not conservative policy. So, you know, I want to see conservative policy. I want to work towards that end. But here's a major problem with what's being said. If the Republican Party in the House is not strong enough and united enough behind small government principles to maintain the sequester, we have major issues in this country. And that is extremely alarming. So I don't accept, and I know what people said behind closed doors, but you won't have those people if forced to cast a vote. And it was a Republican priority, if it was Speaker Boehner's priority to maintain the sequester, I'm pretty sure his folks would fall in line. But if they wouldn't, we have serious problems, and we're not going to get that entitlement reform, even if we have Republicans in the White House, Senate, and the House.
Stan Collins, I want to give you the last word on this point. At the beginning of this process, the Democratic budget wanted to abolish the sequester, and they wanted a very substantial tax hike, as you know, so-called loophole closing. They didn't get either. At the other side, Mr. Ryan wanted to maintain the budget caps, but he had to settle for 70%. He didn't really get any tax cuts. He did, however, get some small entitlement reforms. Don't you think the Republicans actually got the better of this deal?
I don't know about better here. I'm not going to add some kind of normative discussion to this. There was a compromise here, Larry, and one of the and that was unusual in itself over the last 5 years. Don't forget, one of the tenets of the Tea Party is that compromise is a sin, and compromise is collaborating with the enemy. That was a major change, and I don't think we understand fully the political implications or repercussions of this. My guess is the Tea Party folks are going to have to go after one of the more mainstream Republicans, one of those who compromised in a Republican primary. This is not the end of the fight. This is just the beginning.
I gotta give Dan Holler the last word on that one.
Well, I mean, I think it's open to interpretation. If Senator Johnson and others can go back to their constituents and explain why we needed to have a $63 billion spending increase, why deficits needed to increase, why all the deficit reduction is in 2022 and 2023 when a lot of them may not even be in office, if they can sell that to their constituents, more power to them. I just think it's going to be really hard for them to do that.
All right. I'm going to leave it there. Senator Ron Johnson, thank you, sir. Good luck on the votes.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Happy and holy, always. Stan Collins, thank you. It's great to see you back on the show. Dan Holler, thank you very much. I'm not the enemy. I hope you know that. I'm not the enemy. I'm just dealing with the reality.